Opinion: why Meenakshi Jain has been nominated to Rajya Sabha. It is not difficult to gauge the effects of generations of Marxist indoctrination of India's youth when it comes to understanding the past. Besides pushing aside nationalist historians and elevating others of a certain ideological bent to preeminence, the slanted narratives of textbooks created a corpus of Indians willing to believe apologias for centuries of invasion and domination. As contrary evidence was not allowed to be presented, young Indians believed it. If many people who consider themselves well-educated and wary and even proud Indians asked who when they read the name of Meenakshi Jain among the four nominated to the Rajya Sabha, it proves the success of that leftist indoctrination process. Those Indians may not even consider themselves left-leaning or have any discernible political views, but their co-option is evident in their ignorance about uncomfortable truths and those who tell them. Among those challenged truths are, for instance, the importance of sacred spaces and deities to Hindus. God is in our hearts, they say sagely. We do not need idols or temples to worship. These educated Indians do not realize that collective memory was insidiously wiped out, replaced with a passive acceptance of the gruesome reality of temples and deities being the target of centuries of iconoclasm that led to many being destroyed and others being hidden by guardians. The God is in our hearts mantra was a way to come to terms with the dire situation of a religion under persistent attack. When mandirs are demolished, deities are desecrated, priests are killed or converted, and the wealth of temples that also funded educational and societal functions is looted, what is the logical recourse to hide deities and temples and hide faith itself in a place where it cannot be seen and thus rooted out in the minds and hearts of devotees? And Jain's resolute scholarship and robust writing bring long suppressed facts back into sharp focus. Especially her 2019 book Flight of Deities and Rebirth of Temples, which elaborates upon the prolonged project to decimate an ancient faith. She has many more well-researched books worth reading, but this one should be made mandatory for all Indian high school students in order to reverse the effects of the debilitating revisionism of generations of leftist historians. The old leftist vanguard is well known from D.D. Kozambi, R.S. Sharma, and D.N. Jha to Romila Thapar and Ifran Habib, besides fellow travelers of varied merit. But their impact can be seen in the current crop of liberal narrative historians too, who target a non-academic and more credulous audience. Whatever their postulations, the common thread that runs through most of their writings is a distinct lack of respect Shraddha for India's past before 712 CE. What has Shraddha got to do with history or historiography? The answer lies in the situation that India finds itself in a quarter of the way into the 21st century. So many Indians, even post-independence, have grown up thinking the past was a matter of shame, a dark age of caste and gender oppression and exploitation by kings and feudal entities. They were told India was but a patchwork of competing and antagonistic interests, and salvation lay in compromise and rejection. Thus, any look at the past has been tempered by a heavy tadka of skepticism and even contempt. We are modern, Indians say. We are inheritors of a composite culture, the latter being a phrase dinned into the young Indian minds via school textbooks, particularly during the reign of Nurul Hasan as education minister. It is as if being a modern Indian needs negation and derision of historical legacies that precede the cultural precepts of the so-called Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb. Many examples in Jain's introduction to her book contextualize the Ashraddha aspect. As Marxist apologists downplayed and rejected iconoclasm break and gas, a major precept of Islamic invaders, they inserted a totally false equivalence by asserting with no credible proof that Hindu kings had done the same before them. That narrative is being assiduously carried forward, even as recently as the books by Anirudh Kanisetti on the Deccan Kingdoms. If the depredations of the Indian left historians were not enough, the denigration of ancient and known Islamic India by foreign Marxist historians like Richard Eden has given this Ashraddha an added allure, as Indians are inclined to look abroad for validation. Eden, as Jain points out, imbued the repeated attacks of Mahmud of Ghazni on India and India's sacred spaces reduced to political centers with a halo of plain secular greed rather than bloodthirsty religious zeal. No wonder debris of demolished temples meticulously listed by Jain and extant mosques is sought to be explained away as examples of productive engagement with local traditions by sword-wielding invaders. Hence, whereas Roman temple spolia used in building the first churches in the West are now accepted as proof of Christian assertion of power, Indians are being taught that Hindu temple pillars and carvings reused in mosques were an artistic and cultural synthesis, that biased foreign historians such as Audrey Truss-Check's views on Aurangzeb now on 5,000 years of history on the subcontinent. Her latest book Have Indian Fans shows how Ashraddha is condoned. This, even though she deliberately deviates from standard historical methodology odd for a practicing academic by skipping any evidence contrary to her arguments, such as Buddhism continuing in India long after its supposed targeting by resurgent Hinduism. Jain is one of a small band of intrepid warriors fighting to restore Shraddha to the real idea of India, highlighting the long drawn-out subjugation of an identity and its persistent demonization. Most Indians will ask, and who are the other historians given that the left had ensured their sidelining? Those Indians who know and admire, say, Ramchandra Guha's brand of liberal history will not know the works of Ram Swarup, Sitaram Goel, and Ramajoy's. The two-volume Hindu Temples and What Happened to Them, edited by Sitaram Goel with contributions from Ram Swarup, Arun Shourie, Harsh Narain, and J. Dubashi in 1990, was like a forerunner of Jain's 2019 book on the flight of deities. But the heat and dust of the Ram Janmabhoomi movement in the 1990s and the redoubled efforts of Marxist historians to control the narrative on the idea of India postponed effecting real change in people's minds, until 2014. Swipe left for next video. The task of reversing long-standing distortions about our ancient heritage and restoring Shraddha for it is all the more onerous as today's Indian parents and some grandparents have been through the same brainwashing exercise in school. Giving Jain an unparalleled forum like the Rajya Sabha to create greater awareness about a long distorted and suppressed historical and cultural legacy of India is another step in the battle to liberate India's hearts and minds. The author is a freelance writer. Views expressed in the above piece are personal and solely those of the author. They do not necessarily reflect NEWS18's views. Latest blogs.